Medieval India, chapter number 6, the Delhi Sultanate, page number 51, the Mongols and the problem of the northwest frontier. On account of its natural boundaries, India has been safeguarded during most of its history from external invasions. It was only in the northwest that India was vulnerable. As we have seen, it was through the mountain passes of this area that the Turks, like the earlier invaders such as the Huns, Scythians, etc., had been able to penetrate into India and establish an empire there. The configuration of these mountains was such that in order to prevent an invader from reaching the fertile valleys of Punjab and Sindh, it was necessary to control the area extending from Kabul via Ghazni to Kandahar. The control of the area flanked by the Hindu Kush was even more important, for it was the main route for the arrival of reinforcements from Central Asia. Due to the fluid situation in West Asia, the Delhi Sultanate was not able to attain these frontiers, posing a persistent danger to India. With the rise of the Khwarezmi Empire, Khwarezmi Empire, the control of Ghurids over Kabul, Kandahar, and Ghazni was being rapidly lost, and the boundary of Khwarezmi Empire had reached the river Indus. It appeared that a struggle for the mastery of North India was about to begin between the Khwarezmi rulers and the successors of Qutbuddin Aibak. Just then, an even bigger danger made its appearance. This was the arrival of Genghis Khan, the Mongol leader, who prided in calling himself the Scourge of God. The Mongols destroyed the Khwarezmi Empire in 1220. They ruthlessly sacked flourishing cities from the Jaxartes to Caspian Sea and from Ghazni to Iraq, and ravaged the countryside. Many Turkish soldiers over the side of the Mongols. The Mongols deliberately used terror as an instrument of war. Whenever a city surrendered or was conquered after putting up resistance, all the soldiers and large number of their chiefs were slaughtered, and their women and children sold into slavery. Nor were even the civilians spared. Craftsmen from among them were picked out for service with the Mongol army, while other able bodied men were drafted into labor levies to be used against other towns. All these led to a serious setback of the economy and cultural life of the area. Of course, in due course, the establishment of peace and law and order in the area by the Mongols and the safeguarding of the trade routes from China to the shores of Mediterranean Sea started to process of recovery. But several generations passed before Iran, Turan, Iraq were able to recover their previous prosperity. Meanwhile, the Mongol onslaught had serious repercussions on the Sultanate of Delhi. Many princes and the large number of scholars, theologians, learned men, and persons from leading families flocked to Delhi. As the only remaining Muslim state in the area, the Delhi Sultanate thus became extremely important. While on one hand there was emphasis on Islam as the only bond of unity among different sections of the new rulers, it is implied that the Turkish invaders, who were cut off from their homelands and deprived of reinforcements, were compelled to adapt themselves to the Indian situation as quickly as possible. The Mongol threat to India appeared in 1221. After the defeat of Khwarezmi ruler, the crown prince Jalaluddin fled and was pursued by Genghis Khan. Jalaluddin fought a brave battle on the bank of Indus, and after being defeated, he flung his horse into the river and crossed over to India. Although Changiz loitered near the river Indus for 3 months, he decided not to cross into India, preferring to give his attention to conquering the remaining portions of the Khwarizmi Empire. It is difficult to say what would have happened if Changiz had decided to invade India. The Turkish state in India was still too feeble and disorganized. Possibly, India would have had to undergo death, destruction, and devastation on a scale far exceeding what it had to endure initially at the hands of the Turks. Iltutmish, who was ruling at Delhi at that time, tried to appease the Mongols by politely refusing a request from Jalaluddin for asylum. Jalaluddin remained in for some time in the area between Lahore and the river Satluj. That is the Sis Satluj area. This resulted in a series of Mongol attacks. The river Indus ceased to be India's western boundary. Lahore and Multan were were a bone of contention between Iltutmish and his rivals, Yildiz and Kubacha. Yildiz and Kubacha exhausted themselves in the fight for Lahore. Ultimately, Iltutmish was able to conquer both Lahore and Multan and thus formed a fairly strong line of defense against Multan. After the death of Changiz Khan in 1227, the mighty Mongol Empire was divided among his sons. During this period, Mongols under Batu Khan overran Russia. However, till 1240, the Mongols desisted from making any encroachments in India beyond river Indus. The major reason for this was the Mongol preoccupation with Iraq and Syria. This gave breathing time to the sultans of Delhi to organize a centralized state and strong army in India. In 1241, Tahir Ter Bahadur, the commander of the Mongol forces in Herat, Ghor, Ghazni, and Tukharistan, appeared before Lahore. Despite urgent appeals to Delhi, no help was forthcoming and the governor fled from the town. The Mongols sacked and almost depopulated the town. In 1245, the Mongols invested Multan and only a speedy march by Balban saved the situation. When Balban was busy dealing with the threat to his position from his rivals led by Imaduddin Rehan, the Mongols found an opportunity to capture and hold Lahore. Even some Turkish nobles, including Sher Khan, the governor of Multan, threw in their lot with Mongols. Although Balban fought against the Mongols stoutly, the frontiers of Delhi gradually receded from river Jhelum to Beas, which then flowed between the rivers Ravi and Satluj. Multan was recovered by Balban but remained under heavy Mongol pressure. It was this situation that Balban had to face as a ruler. Balban adopted a policy of both force and diplomacy. He repaired the forts of Bhatinda, Sunam, and Samana and posted a strong force in order to prevent the Mongols from crossing the river Beas. He himself remained at Delhi and never moved out to distant expeditions in order to maintain the utmost vigilance at the frontier. Simultaneously, he sent diplomatic feelers to Halaku, the Mongol to Khan of Iran and the neighboring areas. Envoys from Halaku reached Delhi and were received with great honor by Balban. Balban tactically agreed to leave the major portion of Punjab under Mongol control. The Mongols, on their part, did not make any attack on Delhi. The frontier, however, remained undefined, and Balban had to conduct almost annual expeditions against the Mongols in order to keep them in check. He was successful in wresting Multan and placed it as an independent charge under his eldest son, Prince Mahmud. It was in the effort of holding the Multan based line that Prince Mahmud, the heir of apparent of Balban, was killed in an encounter. Although Balban died in 1286, the strategic and diplomatic arrangements made by him continued to serve the Delhi Sultanate. In 1292, Abdullah, the grandson of Halaku, advanced to Delhi with 1,50,000 horses. He was defeated by Jalaluddin Khilji near Balban's frontier line of Bhatinda, Sunam, etc. The demoralized Mongols asked for a truce, and 4,000 Mongols who had embraced Islam came over to the side of the Indian rulers and settled down near Delhi. The Mongol attempt to pass beyond the Punjab and attack Delhi itself was due to change in the Central Asian politics. The Mongol to Khan of Iran had on the whole maintained friendly relations with the sultans of Delhi. Their rivals in the east were Chagatai Mongols, who ruled over Transoxania. The ruler of Transoxania, Dawa Khan, being able to prevail against Il Khan. I believe this is Tu Khan or Il Khan. Please check it and let me know. Of Iran, made an attempt to conquer India. From 1297, he mounted a series of campaigns against the forts defending Delhi. In 1299, a Mongol force of 2 lakhs under his son Kutlug Khwaja arrived to conquer Delhi. The Mongols cut off the communications of Delhi with the neighboring areas and even entered many streets of Delhi. This was the first time the Mongols had launched a serious campaign to establish their rule over Delhi. Alauddin Khilji, who was the ruler over Delhi, decided to face the Mongols outside Delhi. In a number of actions, the Indian armies held their own, though in one isolated action, the famous general Zafar Khan died. After some time, the Mongols withdrew without risking a full-scale battle. In 1303, the Mongols appeared again with a force of 1,20,000. Alauddin Khilji, who was campaigning in the Rajputana against Chittor, rushed back and fortified himself at his new capital, Siri, near Delhi. The two armies camped facing each other for 2 months. During this period, the citizens of Delhi had to suffer many hardships. There were daily skirmishes. Finally, the Mongols retreated again without having achieved anything. These two invasions of Delhi showed that the sultans of Delhi could mass themselves against the Mongols. Something which the Central West Asian rulers had not been able to do till then. At the same time, it was a stern warning to the sultans of Delhi. Alauddin Khilji now took serious steps to raise a large, efficient army and repaired the fortresses near Beas. He was thus able to repel with great slaughter the Mongol invasions which took place in the following years. In 1306, Dawa Khan, the Mongol ruler of Transoxania, died, and his death was followed by confusion and a civil war. The Mongols now ceased to be a threat to India, till a new conqueror, Timur, unified the Mongols. Taking advantage of the confusion among the Mongols, the ruler of Delhi were able to recover Lahore and in course of time extended their control up to the salt ranges beyond the Jhelum. It will thus be seen that during the entire 13th century, the Sultanate of Delhi had to face serious danger from the northwest. Although the Mongols were gradually able to bring almost the entire Punjab as well as Kashmir under their control and to threaten Delhi, yet due to the firmness and vigor of the Turkish rulers and their diplomacy, this threat was averted, and later the Punjab was recovered. However, thus the serious threat posed to Sultanate of Delhi by the Mongols had a powerful effect on all the internal problems of the Sultanate. Thank you everyone for tuning in. In the next part, we'll start with internal rebellions and the struggle for territorial consolidation of Delhi Sultanate on page number 53. Do stay tuned and let us know what you liked in the comment section below. Do share and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and thank you everyone for keep supporting us, and all the best for exams.